All right, it is 7 p.m. I would like to call to order the September 19th meeting of the West Irondequoit Board of Education. Let us start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The West Irondequoit Central School District acknowledges the indigenous people of this region and that this school district building sits on the homelands of the Onondaga Seneca of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. It is on these lands that we teach, learn, and live.
All right. The first item we have on the agenda this evening is the approval of the agenda. Dr. Johnson, do we have any changes to the agenda?
We have no changes tonight. Thank you.
Okay, very good. With that being said, do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion, Ms. Wall, and a second, Mr. Schaffer. Any questions, comments, or concerns around the agenda? All right, hearing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda is West Irondequoit Foundation check presentations. I'll turn this over to Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, it's our pleasure tonight to have our president, John Laurie, with us tonight to present a donation from the West Irondequoit Foundation to the district. As the board knows, this is something that has become a tradition every year. They're a huge supporter of the district and help us to really supplement our programs in many different ways. So I'll turn it over to John.
Sure, it's an honor to be here with all of you tonight, representing the West Irondequoit Foundation. This check is the culmination of a tremendous amount of hard work, volunteerism, and I guess there's no other way. It's donations. It's people in this community, alumni of this district, donating their time, effort, and what do they call it? Their, I forget the term. It's time, talent, and treasure. And that's the result of a check like this. We've had some great grants that we're going to be funding this year. Really excited to get the next slate of grants for next year. And a lot of exciting things happening on the alumni side for the foundation. We'll be holding our first alumni event, an all alumni event, later in the fall. And just look forward to continuing to be able to deliver checks like this to a very deserving group, and that's our faculty of this district. So thank you very much.
Next Friday is the Cornhole.
Next Friday is the Cornhole tournament.
Our largest fundraiser.
Mr. Sullivan. I can't look for that. Hold that badge hostage. 1, 2, 3. Gets a little closer. And we're good. Thanks, guys.
Sure. No, she said no.
All right.
Yes, no?
Who doesn't want to take pictures of big checks?
Okay, well now I feel pressure.
Well, I didn't want to leave you out.
Oh, the ears.
1, 2, 3. I'll try to portion one more time. And we're good. Thank you, folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Once again, a big thank you to the West Irondequoit Foundation for their support of the great program that our teachers are coming up with. Next item on the agenda is public comment. In looking at our sign-in sheet, we have nobody signed in for public comment. just want to remind everyone, we encourage public comment at our meetings. So feel free to come on down, sign in, and speak to the board. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the minutes of the September 5th, 2024 meeting be approved as presented.
Do I have a motion? Ms. Bornwell, and a second. Ms. Coleman. Anybody have any questions or concerns around the minutes? All right, that being said, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda is the oath of office for student representatives. I will turn this over to Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, so it's our pleasure tonight. We have 2 officers with us tonight, or 2 representatives, Aaliyah and Mark. And Bree couldn't be with us tonight unexpectedly, but I want to welcome you, welcome Aaliyah back, and welcome Mark to the team. And looking forward to the great year ahead, working together with you on behalf of the rest of your peers.
If you can stand up and raise your right hand. I'll do her first. Okay. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of
the duties of the office of
student representative
student representative
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New York,
of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of
the duties of the office of
student representative
student representative
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Well, before we move on, I just asked Mr. Sullivan if I could just say a little bit more, have the students say a little bit more. As the board knows, this year it has become required, right, for districts to have student representatives to the board as a liaison between the board and the student body. A very, very important, critical role that they play as far as that channel of information and that two-way street. So it was great to watch you. That's not easy to take the oath, as the board members know, especially with a camera right in your face. Right? But you both did a great job. But if I could, and Aaliyah's a vet, but I want to just give you a moment to introduce yourself again to the board. Say a few things about how it's going, or maybe about you personally as a student, and then we'll have work through the same thing.
I'm Leah Bosker. I'm a senior in high school right now, and one of the things about me is that I'm the editor-in-chief of our school newspaper, so you'll see me always dish them out whenever we finish a new issue, just so you guys can stay up to date and whatnot. But yeah.
My name is Roy Kickie. I do a few things within the school. I'm the co-vice president of my class. So currently we're working on homecoming and those type of celebrations. Then I just joined newspaper club with Aaliyah, and I also do Model UN. So yeah, and thank you.
Welcome.
And thank you both. This is a big commitment. Your updates and what you bring to our meetings are very important to us. We appreciate all the time and effort. All right, next item on the agenda is good news. Turn this over to the student representative.
IHS Curl members Evan Bateman, Olivia Kroll, Owen DeMonco, Mason Goringer, and Elisa Pasiga sang the national anthem at the Town of Irondequoit's 9/11 ceremony. Helmer Nature Center's Butterfly Release, a new event held for the folks who run our outdoor classroom, was a huge hit on September 12th. Not only did more than 80 people attend, but the children were engaged with crafts and by learning about why butterflies travel south. Staff members Chris Scheller, Mark Kirtland, Jake Shirley, Nick DiMartino, Kayana Session, and Laura Wambach were all interviewed live by 13 Ram TV and Fox Rochester as a part of the opening day of school. IHS seniors Malia Bosker and Bailey Connor, as well as Superintendent Johnson, were also featured.
Irondequoit Middle School's Gottfried crew, led by 4th grade teacher Jennifer Gottfried, held its annual beach cleanup at Durant Eastman over the summer. It was part of their stand-up class project, and it was featured by Rock TV Channel 8. Senior Grace Taberski spent a week in Chicago over the summer representing IHS as a student ambassador at the Hugh O'Brien World Leadership Congress. She was joined by student ambassadors from all 50 states and 12-plus countries learning about leadership and how to become a more empowered global citizen. The West Irondequoit Foundation hosted 3 class reunion tours at IHS over the summer, and next Friday hosts its 5th annual cornhole tournament at the Irondequoit Sports Center. The event is expected to push the 5-year total raised by cornhole to more than $70,000.
Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Johnson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sullivan. So, dive in here. As I have mentioned before, our theme that we set for the year is Keep Showing Up, thanks to our guest speaker on opening day, Denard Mitchell. It was a great hit. I mean, he left everybody pumped up and energized for the year. And as part of that, Keep Showing Up, with that theme, we're reinforcing with our staff and then demonstrating to our community and you all the ways that we're showing up on full, showing up curious, and showing up inspired for our students. So what you'll see up there, just a couple of highlights, some recent highlights up in the left-hand corner is a college admissions fair. So that's something that obviously is very important. Starting to talk to families about just the investigation, taking trips. So certainly an important time of the year for our upperclassmen. We have Mrs. Grote right there to the right. That was National Play-Doh Day. If you haven't had the pleasure of meeting Mrs. Grote, she's our secretary at the Listwood Elementary School. And since she started, I think she's been on board for 1 full year, correct? Every day, she dresses up in theme for whatever the national day is. The other day I went in, it was National Rice Krispie Day, so she was handing out Rice Krispies. Today was talk like a pirate day, I believe. You know, there's a lot of R's. So, you know, when we talk about showing up full and inspiring not only our children, but also her peers, I think she really sits at the pinnacle of that. We talked about the butterfly release. It was an extremely well-attended event. Mr. Brennan was able to get up there and support the cause, and it seems like everybody had a really great time. And then I think that was Mrs. Leonard's class over there. They were doing a great team-building exercise. So a lot of the first few days, we've done a lot of work around social emotional learning, building community, right? And just promoting connections within the classroom. So it was great to see our teachers prioritizing that. We were able to celebrate our instructional technology professionals this week, so here's an awesome picture of our crew, and certainly we couldn't do what we do, literally. We're all sitting here with one-to-one technology here right now. It's functioning well, right, with the access points, and there's just so many layers to that that just continue to grow by leaps and bounds. And on top of that, the cybersecurity. So honestly, we're to a point now in public education, we can't do what we do without that. They're certainly critical to our day-to-day functions. So just want to say thank you to that entire crew. They're phenomenal, they're passionate, and they get the job done. So extremely valuable. A few updates from the district. I believe I've mentioned this to the board, but I want to bring it back to everyone's attention. So we have district core commitments that sit underneath our mission, right? And I think those were finalized in 2018, thereabouts. So we've been talking about the work that we've been doing, a lot of growth, a lot of development, right? A lot of evolution in the district. And so it's time for us to crack those back open. Not to blow them up, right? Not to shake them up, but to look at what are the strengths of those commitments, and maybe what are some of the gaps that have emerged through the work and the learning that we've done, right? So working with Ms. Miga, she's undergoing some work across the district to, I guess I would say, reconsider our school-based planning teams and expanding those so that they're more of a shared decision-making team in our buildings. And we're taking that perspective at the district level too. So with that, we've chosen for this particular initiative to go through the District Curriculum Council, which is a very similar group. They guide our curriculum within the district, and we felt like this would be a great project for them to kind of sink their teeth into. Broad spectrum of stakeholders, so we're excited about that and just wanted to make you aware. Certainly they'll come back to you. Just a reminder, we sent out the NYSSBA resolutions for this year for 24-25. And actually I should have put 25-26 because it's really for next year. We'll be working on those in the coming year. But on October 3rd, we flagged that for discussion with you folks. So you should have those in hand. And then on October 10th, I think Ms. Wall, right? You're going to be carrying the torch for the district. And we just want to carve out some time for you to discuss those and talk about any direction that we have to provide Ms. Wall in representing the team. We did have some of our community members come and join us on July 9th and talk to us during public comment about the veterans partial tax exemption. So this was something that we had considered a number of years ago, but they want to bring it back to the table. And so Mr. Brennan and I were able to sit down and just hear a little bit more. I have some materials to send you. I'll send you tomorrow. They shared that are going to be relevant to that discussion. And we kind of left it because they had more to say to you. So we talked about how they might use public comment in the next couple of months to share some of that information, keep that dialogue going in a way that they're seeking to do. Just FYI for you, I'm traveling to the NISCUS Fall Leadership Conference on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of next week. So I'll be out in the district. Mr. Brennan has been gracious enough to step up and act as the Chief Emergency Officer. So I'm sure that's going to go swimmingly. I'll be available by cell phone, so I just want to make you aware of that. And if there's any nuggets I can bring back, I'll do that. Just a reminder, one of the promises we made to the community when we presented the proposition to purchase Pine Grove is that we would use that space, right, as another building to expand our pre-K services. So we've been working on that. Facilities committee has been rolling up their sleeve, and we have a whole timeline laid out of what we need to do in the next few months to tentatively host a vote with our community on December 10th. Some more information to come about that. And then we had the chance, again, just to keep you updated, to meet with our architects and engineers recently, CPL. So we've been putting a lot of effort into a master plan. One of the charges that you gave me when I came on board was trying to wrap all of that around our instructional program a little more tightly. So we made considerable gains in that. So we had a chance to meet with them recently. They did some focus groups with a lot of different stakeholders, you included, over the summer, right, to give input to that. They've assessed our buildings, and they're progressing on that. We hope to present that back to you in the winter months. And then last but not least, I mentioned this before, we have a retirement coming up. So our assistant superintendent for human resources, Ms. Michelle Kramer. And I've certainly said some words about Michelle and just how impactful she is in the district and how meaningful she's been to this progress, but I want to turn it over to President Sullivan to say a few more words.
So, thank you, Dr. Johnson. I think you've done a great job of articulating what Ms. Kramer has done for our district. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a little bit about what you've done for my family. we have not had a child go through this school, through this district, without you being in some way, shape, or form involved. My wife wouldn't be a teacher in this district if it wasn't for your encouragement. I don't think I would be on this school board if it wasn't for your inspiration when I was on the school-based planning team. That's a small, very small piece that I think really provides an amazing example of the impact that you've had on this district, on our faculty and staff, on our students. This role is so much more than personnel agendas. Having had the privilege to sit on committees that you have chaired, like our code of conduct, your passion, your dedication, your love for our students and for this district is apparent in everything that you do. So I feel like thank you is not enough, but you've done so much for this district, so much for this family, for my family, so much for this board, and I really like to thank you for all of that and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, everybody, and not always good with words, but I do want to say thank you, and I want to say thank you for your support, not only of all of us here in Western Irondequoit, but for our students, and for giving us the opportunity to have great people that care about our students, for the opportunity to have been a part of this journey, and for leadership, great leadership that we've had along the way. So, thank you.
With that, if there's any comments or questions, I'll take those.
All right, thank you, Dr. Johnson. The next item on the agenda is our student representative.
This past Monday, we visited Brookview Elementary School and heard lots of feedback from the students there. We were thankful to have Principal Mrs. Fitz sit in with us, which proved to help students make students more comfortable. This is something that we haven't had done in the past, and this year really seemed to help. Although kindergartners were a little anxious about coming to school for the first time, most of their worry was mediated by familiarity from coming to family events like movie and carnival nights with their older siblings. Additionally, the friendly teachers and staff there, or teachers and students there, helped them adjust quickly. We were excited to learn that second graders will be learning cursive this coming winter. We noted that this is important as many schools nationwide have become lacking in this area. It seemed a majority of students were also excited about their learning. Programs like CKLA, which helps form reading and writing skills, iReady, which is math skills and math challenges, all help encourage and incentivize students to learn. Good behavior was encouraged through Brookview's Best and gives students a sticker for recognition, and school safety officers that third graders get to participate in allows them to patrol the kindergarten hall and enforce the rules. Both initiatives make students feel special and happy about their achievements and their good behavior. Shockingly, when a first grader was asked what she would do if she were principal for the day, she said she would allow students to bring their phones to school. This was notable because students are getting cell phones at younger ages, and currently the elementary schools do not permit students to bring them at all. A positive of not allowing students to have their phones is that distractions from this will not be an issue. A negative, however, students, in the case of an emergency or those who may walk home or to school, are unable to communicate with their parents. Overwhelmingly, the students love specials, particularly physical education with Mr. McGinn. They also, of course, loved the playground, but surprisingly loved reading, saying some of their favorite books were The Skull and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Classroom seating was also noticeably different. When me, Mr. DeBlanca, Aaliyah, and Bree walked in, we saw that it was a lot more comfortable than when all three of us went to Brookview Elementary School. And this, we learned, was from a grant that the board approved last year, and we believe this benefits students and makes them more comfortable in their learning environment. One thing the students wanted to improve is the breakfast options in the morning. Currently, they only have cereal, but they would like to have bagels, toast, muffins, and other options. Thank you. That's the report.
Morale is high at IHS. We've had a spirit week this week in anticipation of the homecoming football game. So Monday was pajama day, Tuesday was class colors, Wednesday was back to Wednesday, Thursday was pink out. I still have my jumpsuit on. And then Friday will be blue and gold. On Tuesday we had super quiz, which is like a trivia competition. So sophomores beat freshmen, and then juniors won against seniors, which I was a little bit upset about. But it was a close game. Seniors won hallway decorating, with juniors taking second place. Freshmen came in last, while sophomores took third. Tomorrow will be our float competition. IHS sports are off to a great start. Girls cross country is 6-0 and coming off a big win Tuesday over Pittsburgh Sutherland, Pittsburgh Mendon, and Canandaigua. Boys cross country is 5-1. Girls volleyball is 4-1. Football is 2-0, headed into Friday's 6 p.m. homecoming game versus Webster Schrader. IHS has scored 99 points in the first 2 games. Junior diver Brenna Scott, who is the defending Section 5 champion, is undefeated in dual meets so far. IHS field hockey beat Hilton 1-0 in the home opener. Junior Brendan Collins' first quarter goal was the winning goal, and senior Marley Munison made 5 saves. Girls lacrosse is undefeated. Staff and students alike are excited for the homecoming game this Friday. The crew has done an amazing job this year welcoming freshmen. Before the homecoming game, they'll be hosting a tailgate party just for the 9th graders with a bunch of food, beverages before the game. The crew also gave everyone a very sweet welcome back to school by handing out candy, helping freshmen find their classes on the first day, as well as showing them around the school beforehand. I don't know if you guys heard, but our AC system is not very good right now. Some rooms have even reached a sweltering 81 degrees, but Adam was very quick to solve this problem. They implemented portable AC systems, and they kind of work, but we are very happy to hear that the AC is being worked on, and we are anticipating cooler rooms next week. The auditions for IHS's Fall Drama Lost Girl took place this week. It's a coming of age drama about Wendy's life after visiting Neverland. This concludes the IHS report.
Thank you so much for those reports and for the good news earlier. Your reports are done this evening. You are welcome to stay, but we also know that this is a really small portion of everything you have to do as students. So if you need to head out for the evening, you are encouraged to as well. Once again, thank you.
Thank you guys, and welcome.
Great job.
All right, moving on. The next item on the agenda is our business. The report of the treasurer. Dr. Johnson.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brennan, any comments to add?
The next item on the agenda is approval of financial statements and the treasurer's report. Dr. Johnson.
Yes, Mr. Brennan, anything to add to those materials?
Just want to point out that typically the summer, although we still have expenses for our 12-month employees who are purchasing in preparation for the school year, we get essentially no revenue. State aid and the levy follows a little bit later. But we position ourselves well from a cash flow perspective so that we can make it through summertime without engaging in borrowing, which has been true as well. Most of our revenue coming in is from interest earnings, and something we've been pretty progressively changed in the last couple of years. So that was the only thing I'd like to highlight on our treasurer reports.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. The next part of our meeting is. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry, I was on the wrong agenda item. Excuse me. All right. Thank you for the report, Mr. Brennan. Ms. Lustig, may I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the July 31st, 2024 and August 31st, 2024 financial statements and treasurer's reports be accepted as presented.
I have a motion. Motion, Ms. Wall, second. Mr. Schopfer. Okay. Any questions, comments, or concerns for Mr. Brennan? All right. That said, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? 7-0. Sorry about that, Ms. Lustig. All right, the next portion of the meeting is business, and our first agenda item of business is business. Dr. Johnson.
Mr. Sullivan, thank you. So we're going to head right back to Mr. Brennan. Brennan?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, and Dr. Coker.
Yes.
That's a short slide there. Thanks. Yeah, very good. Yep.
That's all right, hold on, sorry.
Thank you. Awesome. So we had our first facilities planning committee meeting yesterday, and we meet monthly. And it's a great group, number of representatives around the table here, and we try to take a high-level look at a variety of different issues and plans as it relates to facilities. So we had a very full agenda. We didn't even necessarily get through all our slide decks, so I will point out to you there's two pieces to look at in there. One, I'm going to go through the slide deck here right now, which is going to kind of highlight the things we discussed at facilities planning. There's a separate piece that John Conti had put together, our Executive Director of Operations, that covered all the other projects that occurred that were outside of our capital project for the RISE project. So there's a really nice slide deck showing various work around paving, tile work in bathrooms, different concrete work, which kind of highlights it. So it's worth to look. It's a PDF file there as well. But for our facilities planning, what we really focus on just a couple of major things. This is going to be a bridge version, of course, of our committee. So we first got an update from representatives of campus construction as well as CPL, our architects, regarding where we are relative to the RISE project, which is obviously the major project that's going on right now. So over the course of the summer, we know they did an awesome job installing the playgrounds at Irondequoit Rogers, but they also replaced one of the rooftop units at Rogers Middle School. So that was completed. And now we're starting to move into probably more of the meat and potatoes of the RISE project. Our former elementary building, Lakeview, they've been doing some interior demolition and abatement work up there over the course of the end of summer and September, and they'll be working on that throughout the year. It's an unoccupied space at this point, which actually works out great for our construction crews, so they can kind of get at it unabated. Next biggest thing we're probably going to see very visible at main campus here is the starting of the construction of the bridge between IHS and Dake. Project we've talked about at this table for many, many years. It's actually going to happen. It'll happen in the fall. So there's been a lot of work between our architects, construction managers, building principals, as well as our various representatives of safety to make sure that it can be done throughout the year in a safe fashion. But you can see some of the other updates that are going to be coming. We have door upgrades at Seneca and Dake. In December, we have the Irondequoit Library starting in December, and then in the spring, the Rogers Library will also be worked on. Major reconstruction of those two spaces. And then at the IHS, we are going to be replacing some of the light bars in there as well. That's been another project that's been on our list for a while. And relative to one of our student reports here, yep, we are aware that there was it's actually RTU1 was the one that failed at the high school. So it's up there. We've got it on the docket for this summer, and it definitely has aged out. There are a number of leaks in it, so our facilities crew did a nice job of shutting it down so that so our contractors could work on it, but also provide that temporary cooling to the best degree they could in that space. So you can kind of see some of the other rooftop units we're going to be getting out over the summer. Some of the work is going to continue into the fall. Next year, probably most notably, Rogers Library will be one to talk about most. Okay, so that's kind of a status update of the RISE project, just in terms of where we are right now. Moving on to future projects, and this was part of, obviously, the superintendent's report. And this is kind of a schematic, what is a schematic, of UPK concept at Pine Grove, and the areas in gold are the ones that we'll be looking at to renovate to create 3 UPK spaces, as well as a multi-purpose space. Also looking at the large central APR as possibly a STEAM area to be used throughout the district. Some of those areas are kind of, that depends on whether I'm looking at my screen over there, that kind of salmon kind of color. Those are some of the ancillary office, like a nurse's office, administrative office as well there associated with it. So those are the concepts that our architects have put together for this UPK renovation at Pine Grove. They work closely with our architects and engineers to provide an estimate of costs, and so this is based on that work that was described on the previous slide. This would be a total project cost are estimating about $6 million. Questions that are still being answered from SED are aidability pieces tied to what's called PAUs, building aidable units. So this is not an active building at this time, so they're looking at our enrollment projections, looking at what our plan is for the classroom spaces, and they'll give us an idea of how much of that can be aidable. We'll work with our financial advisors to be able to get a better sense in terms of what is that local share. The exciting part about the local share, I'm sure we're all aware that the representatives were there as well. Up at Pine Grove, we had representatives from New York State Assembly that promised us up to $1 million towards that local share for the project. So that will be definitely needed because no projects are 100% aidable, and so this will help us offset that local share. So more to come on this as we get some of those other financial pieces answered. Second project, this kind of came up through both our master planning that Dr. Johnson mentioned, but also we discussed it a bit during our August workshop. And this is a concept of turf fields for baseball and softball up at the main campus. Many school districts are replacing their sod fields for these sporting areas for turf. And so this was a concept kind of came back to facilities planning to get some more ideas about what this might look like. This is a schematic there in terms of what those fields might look like in those areas. Some bird spaces plus a central area for common sports. And then similarly to what Campus Construction, who really serves as our estimators, provided an estimated cost for such a project. And you can see the total cost for that, for those fields on main campus would be just about $18 million. We would need to do a small amount of work in the high school to kind of fall under the rules of New York State for aidability. We anticipate this project would be highly aidable, but there would still be a significant portion of it that would require a local share. What we've done historically the last several projects, multiple projects, is we lean on our capital reserve to provide that local share. Most of our projects in the last 10, 15 years have all been zero tax impact projects. So that would be a strategy we look at similarly for these as well. So I just want to provide an update to the board regarding kind of what the major discussion and sharing information that occurred in facilities planning yesterday. Let me answer any questions.
Questions, comments?
I was just going to ask about Pine Grove, and I know we talked about it, I just don't remember. The Nature Center is still going to have rooms in there, correct?
That is correct. Those are the 2 rooms kind of to the right there that are that aren't shaded.
Science
right now.
classrooms?
Yeah,
Okay.
so they would be, we've kind of always looked at this building in terms of phases of renovations. So the ones to the top that have been renovated, those are the we did that locally. Those are the tutoring spaces. This UPK would be focused on the UPK section and with future plans for the Helmer Nature Center. Helmer Nature Center, we've got them, they're going to be meeting with our architects as part of that master planning piece to kind of envision what all their spaces might look like, including these classrooms. But we all know that Helmer extends much beyond the classrooms. They do have their own offices, but of course it's also the outdoor learning spaces too. So we want to make sure we kind of capture that in the master.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sorry, I was in the major meeting yesterday, I was flying back across country, but, was the, a discussion with the synthetic fields, two questions. What kind of scoreboard would maybe look like? Would we like maybe move the scoreboard to the other end and do a double-sided scoreboard? Just a question that came up looking at this drawing. For that, because we have another synthetic field there, and then do we know what it would cost to also include turfing and field track?
Yeah, those questions didn't come up at facilities planning, but
We can take those back.
I just was wondering if we propose this, I'll say athletic complex, right? Multi-use athletic complex. Did the planning, what type of scoreboards or timing and all that now come with that, was that included?
yeah, they do have some generic numbers around lighting and all those things in there, but we can find out what campus does at the meetings before they get into the nuts and bolts details, but they probably do have a standard general size and type of display board, which I'm sure we can find out from them. Like, what do you guys?
One of those was,
Yeah.
that would be, and then just, they're gonna be here doing work, what's the cost to do it now compared to later, and then that kind of takes care of the main campus with synthetic field.
And then sort of along the same lines, when you had talked about the local share, like is there a dollar figure connected to that, or how does?
Yeah, we still have to get a kind of a firmer number from our financial advisors. Kind of initial look at, this is highly aidable, but we were estimating probably about a $4 million local share. That we want them to confirm it. Within every project, not every piece is aidable, but the idea of the bulk of the expense to the turf itself, that is an aidable portion of it, providing you do a small amount of work in the high school, which is what that field is tied to.
And I don't know if I heard this, James, but an idea that we may bring back to the board is if you choose to put this up as a proposition in December, it would be a separate proposition. So vote on Pine Grove separately, that'd be the first proposition, and this would be separate where communities presented with the option, right, if that's what you choose to do, and they can either support that or not. So.
Would this sort of be a phase project? Like I see that there's, maybe sort of 4 different sections. Would it be like one project, or would we have to like phase it out?
The timeline would be very similar to Pine Grove in terms of the, if we went forward with a successful December vote, this work, just like Pine Grove's work, would be done in the summer of 2027, figuring the time, obviously, to develop the plans, get it approved, but the scope in terms of the work being done. Campus talked about a bit, like some great strategies, like, if you time it right with some good planning, you can get a lot of, especially on that type of field, you can get a lot done in the winter time when it's not being utilized at all. So those are some different strategies they would look at as they kind of phase out the exact construction timeline.
I know we talked about this a little bit at the workshop, but could you just give a little bit of background of like what the existing condition is and what we're addressing by turfing it?
Yeah, probably I'll start in introductions. The major thrust of it would be really a couple things: to maximize accessibility of it by a variety of sports through a different surface with improved drainage. Right now, it's kind of limited by weather, and so you can kind of see that just like we've seen with our turf field, when that went from grass to turf, the utilization by a variety of sports increased quite a bit.
We also talk about community use. So that, these fields are highly utilized for the community, because they have to rest, we have to care for those, you know, it's grass turf. So this would open that up so that they can be more broadly used by youth sports and, you know, community organizations. So that's another aspect as well.
Yeah, and the other piece that was discussed, both by our architects, but also by our facilities folks, is probably of the sports fields we have, these require, the current condition requires the most maintenance and care. The field mix, I can't speak to it as well as they can, but it does take up quite a bit more maintenance than like some of the other general fields we have in the district.
Thanks.
Okay, one last question, I swear. So would we be eliminating the JV field? Yep. And so they would all play in the varsity field?
So that was with the lighting, we had that discussion. Now they could play back-to-back versus side-by-side. So there, it creates some other scheduling options there. With the lighting that they have planned in that cost.
Yeah.
So
Nice. Well, I appreciate that you doing the work and getting us the numbers. I know we've talked about it a few times, so this is great. Thank you.
One last question for me too, sorry. Does this plan include like bleachers or anything like that?
yeah, my understanding is it would, right? A lot of that stuff would be portable because you can see, you know, they have the field in the center as well that would be utilized. There's also conversation that would have to be worked out when we go to the actual planning of the details, and that's what surface to have home play. Like they could do a clay or not a clay, and they talked about some of the pros and cons of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Brennan. On this last thing, that was kind of business and facilities update, but okay, the next portion of the meeting is instruction. And our agenda item is the instruction update, so Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Megan. We have a fabulous Canva presentation
That's
today.
right, I love Canva. All right, so a couple of pieces to update you on tonight. So first off, we wanted to share about a recent SED memo that we, as well as all districts, received around regionalization. So this is something, I pulled a quote from NICE's website, and actually I included the website for your independent perusal whenever you would like, to gain more information on this idea that they are putting out right now around regionalization, which is basically trying to find opportunities within the districts that might partner near each other and find opportunities to really support each other. I think that's kind of the long and short of it. And so it's actually a multi-step process, which is outlined on the website. But the first step includes a strengths and needs tool. So under the leadership of Kelly Santora, our data team has already started to dig into, it's a pretty extensive needs assessment, essentially, that we are going to need to provide data for, but not just kind of the hard data, but also the anecdotal data around really just everything that happens in and around the district. And with this idea that they are going to take all of that information across all of the districts and find where there are opportunities at each district for those partnerships, and to really just help each other out. And so that, we just wanted to make sure that you had an awareness of that, because it's a newer piece that we are doing. It's certainly a new needs assessment that we're engaging in. But the idea, I believe, if you again dig into there, it's about like a 10-year cycle. So even though it's a lot of data all at once right now, we don't anticipate that necessarily being a yearly thing, but so we just wanted to give you some background on that. I also wanted to provide some updates on some of the great supports that you really helped us out with as a Board of Education through your support. And so last year we talked a lot through our budgeting process around our continued expansion of our K-6 continuum of special education programs and services. And so some of that being some additional, last year we added 3.0 special education teachers to our district team. And so just really happy to report that those are up and running. 2 of those positions went to expand our kindergarten ICTs. So here we have Ms. Bay and Ms. Shaughnessy at Listwood, as well as Ms. Soja and Ms. Brewer at Seneca, both which are representing 2 of our kindergarten ICTs. And those both happen to be North End ICTs, but we also have a South End kindergarten ICT at Brookview. So starting that, which we will carry over every year now to have a North and South End ICT. And so those are going great. And we also were able to expand an 811 classroom. So at Irondequoit, we now have 3-4 and 5-6 811 classrooms, which have helped us to meet all the needs of our student. That was one of the positions that we had to kind of see what our student needs would be in order to determine that last FTE, and that is also up and running. And our teachers are just working really diligently, and staff as well, to support those classrooms. So I'm excited about that. So thank you for your support. Another area where we received your support last year was in expanding our occupational therapy staff. So we did add an additional OT staff member this school year. And with that, and this was part of the proposal to add another occupational therapist. So in addition to the increased caseload that we're seeing, those numbers really drove the need for an additional OT. But we also, with the additional staff member, were able to put in place a new occupational therapy model. And our OTs, under the leadership of Joanna Rowe, are calling it the 3-to-1 model, or the collaboration model, collaboration consultation model, where OTs provide direct services 3 weeks, and then on the 4th week, or 1 week of consultation following those 3 weeks. And so what can happen at this consultation week? Well, it can continue to be direct service, whether it's the traditional direct service where it's pull-in or push-up sessions. It can be support during content areas where students who are receiving OT services may typically get it in a pull-in or a push-out. Now our occupational therapies can push into different content areas, and support on field trips if applicable. And then this also would provide them time to give an indirect service. So this is where they're able to provide materials and resources to teachers and families, provide additional training to staff. I think of our OTs work very closely with our newest learners in kindergarten and 1st grade, and this will help us to address some of those tier 1 needs that we see in our earliest learners, and are being the experts in their field. Our occupational therapists can provide that training to our staff. And then also have the time to conduct observations of students. So you can see we really are maximizing that additional OT position, and it's not just going to be a benefit to our students with those increased numbers, but you can see to all of our student staff and families as well. And I wanted to take a moment to introduce, although I'm sure many of you have potentially met our new Humanities and STEAM TOSA. So part of some of our reorganization of teachers on special supports last year, we wanted to, moved to a model where instead of we had kind of like a part-time STEAM, part-time humanities, a literacy TOSA, a technology TOSA, which were all a little bit part-time and looked a little bit differently. What we decided to move forward with after conversations was to put in place 2 full-time TOSAs, so teachers on special assignment, 1 for humanities and 1 to support STEAM, and all the different initiatives that we have going on in those areas since they're such large departments. And they also are supporting with the technology needs, the literacy needs that we had some more specialized TOSAs for in the past. So our K-12 Humanities TOSA is Lindsay Porter, who was up until this year a teacher at Dake Junior High School, and so I will not read all of the lovely information that they have shared, but just we wanted to share a little bit to introduce themselves to you. And then for our K-12 STEAM TOSA, we have Becca Klupski, who was also previously at Dake, but as a math teacher. And you can again read some of the great things about Ms. Kalupski. But they're both off and running. They've attended outside PDs already, which are going to be able to come back and turnkey for us. They're both really excited about working across K through 12. Dr. Marrero shared that on the very first day of school, he brought them to our pre-K classrooms, which was a little eye-opening for them being junior high teachers, but they were very excited to learn how they could support our pre-K students as well. So just very grateful to have both of these teachers move into these roles and provide support across the district. And last quick update, we just recently had our first, during the school year, K-6 and 7-12 leadership meetings. And this was something that is really in alignment with our strategic plan and some of the feedback through there. But we started the year off with aligning our supervision practices to our school-based planning team's goals. And so at this meeting, we really dove deeply into student data, and then talked about how that data led to some of the goals on the school-based plans, but also how can we leverage that data and those plans that have already been set to create teacher goals, teacher and staff goals, and how can we look at supervision, and you can see as our superpower, the way that we can really help someone be successful with the school year. So we were really excited to work on that together, just continue as we all, go into different classrooms, work towards that alignment though, so that our staff is getting similar support from everyone. And those are just some of the great things happening in instruction. So if there's any questions or comments.
Just a comment, I'm very excited about the equity that's happening between the North and South with our special education programs. And I think that's a great thing for us around Irondequoit, so thank you for your leadership with that.
Any other questions from this meeting?
I have a question regarding regionalization. So I was looking to that more, and it's a very interesting concept. I don't know if you know this, and it's fine if you don't, but is this specific to like nearby districts partnerships, or is it a possibility to expand across the county?
I think it's across the county and honestly across the state. So it's all, so it came from the State Department, and so they're going to ask all the regional districts, so the BOCES, and then down to each individual district to do some of this data collection and planning. So they really are, they're looking across the state, how can we be supportive of each other.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Ms. Liga. Our next item on the agenda is personnel. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, sir. I'll turn it over to Ms. Kramer.
May I have the recommended resolution?
Be it resolved that the personnel agenda dated September 19th, 2024, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Day. And a second, Ms. Bornevall. All right, Dr. Johnson.
Ms. Kramer.
Thank you. So tonight, for your approval, we have resignations of certified staff, an elementary teacher, an English teacher, and 5 teaching assistants. Classified retirement of a grounds equipment operator for 11 years, 7 months of service to our district. Classified resignation of a computer support assistant, district registrar, teacher, clerk, and 3 nurses. Change in employment of a health clerk to library clerk, and an elementary teacher to elementary lead teacher TOSA. And the appointments for certified probationary staff of 3 elementary teachers, an English language arts teacher, a special education teacher. We have a long-term substitute art teacher, 4 teaching assistants, a director of health, physical education, and athletics, and an elementary principal at Briarwood and Colbrook schools. Classified staff, 3 teacher aides, cleaner, grounds equipment operator, and a nurse. And our at-will per diem staff of a nurse substitute, a food service helper, 3 long-term substitute ones, free lunch and recess monitors, a food service substitute, and a contract substitute.
Right. Any questions for Ms. Crane? Mr.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for all the work on this. Can you just remind the board, I know we've talked before, the difference between a contract sub, a regular sub, and a long-term sub, just so we know, because even though they're on the agenda and different things, just I think it's important that everybody understands that.
So your at-will per diem subs are just daily substitutes that would work, a day here or there. We have our long-term substitute ones, which are teachers that are placed in a classroom for continuous service for the same teacher for 15 to 74 days. Then we have our long-term substitute 2, which are teachers that are in a role as a long-term substitute for 75 or more days. And they are aligned to our teacher step in the salary of the WITA contract. We also have contract subs, sometimes you'll hear them referred to as building subs, and those are subs that are certified teachers that are committed to working in the district at least 4 days a week. They will stay, with us. We assign them 2 buildings. We guarantee them that time, and if there isn't something available in that building, we will place them in another building to cover their support.
Thank you. Sometimes gets confusing, so it's important to know that.
Any other questions on our personnel?
I'm looking at some of these, excuse me, the teaching assistants that are coming in. What dictates the hourly rates? There's different hourly rates for ones that have seemingly the same, I guess, experience might be a little different. Is that a set entry level rate?
In our agreement with the Western Teachers Association, teaching assistants similar to teachers have steps. So really based on the level of education and then prior experience, we have like set guidelines that we use to have those salary offers match those experiences. And then it's tied to that step in the contract.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? That's it. Let's go ahead and vote. All of those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
So, at this point, it's my pleasure, we have a couple of guests with us tonight who have been super patient getting to the personnel agenda, so we appreciate that. But I first want to introduce our newest principal, Jennifer DeWitt, who is with us tonight. Welcome to the board. Extremely excited. Jennifer, you can see some of the details of her resume there in the personnel agenda, but an extremely experienced leader in the region. And just going through the process, she blew the doors off from our committees, and by far was the favorite, or like I had said in my comments, that will go out very soon to the staff and then to the to families, is she's really easy to connect with. We could see that in the room as she was working with the different committees. Her passion, and I talked earlier about the connections we make emotionally, and that was, I think, the first connection we had with her. And then she rolled out and started talking about all of the technical skills and expertise that she has and the different initiatives that she's carried in her current position. So I want to just give you a moment, if you'd like to introduce some of your guests that came to support you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So I'll introduce my husband. This is Chad DeWitt. Eldest, my daughter Ariana. This is my son, Chad. This is my dear friend Rhonda. This is my principal, current supervisor, Susan Ladd. I think you all know me. And this is my niece, Brittany Wells.
Welcome aboard. And we also have Brendan O'Toole over here. Brendan is our newest addition to our administrative team. He will be be our new Director of Health, Physical Education, and Athletics. Also comes with extensive experience in leadership and a really deep experience in Section 5. So he's currently serving as a leader in the local district, and in this capacity, and we're super excited. He has ties to the district through some family, and he's talked about some of the passions that he's going to bring here. But again, what impressed our committees around Brendan was just, as you'll get to know Brendan, he's a very strategic thinker. He's a person that we found listens first and gathers all the information and allows people to share and really collaborate and promotes that. And again, he's got a passion for his profession. So I want to welcome Brendan. Brendan, anything that you would like to?
I'm just excited and very appreciative of the whole committee for the process. And my guests couldn't be here because they're 10 and 7, so they're probably getting ready for bed. But thank you for
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And on behalf of the board, welcome to both of you. We're very excited to have you join the Eagles family. All right, our next item on the agenda is extracurricular stipends. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the extracurricular stipends dated September 19th, 2024, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
Motion. Motion is Warren, second. Second is Copeland. Dr. Johnson.
So I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Green.
So there are no changes since the first read, and they are in red, and the changes from last meeting.
Do you have any questions regarding the extracurricular stuff? All right, seeing none, go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda is fall coaches. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the fall coaching stipends dated September 19th, 2024, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
I have a motion, please. Motion, Ms. Boyer, and a second. Second, Ms. Wall. Dr. Johnson.
Ms. Kramer?
Yeah. So there are no changes since your review last meeting, and then this is the only addition is the scheduler position.
Any questions on fall coaches? All right, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Excuse me. Next item on the agenda is new business, and under new business we have ratification of the West Irondequoit Maintenance Employees Organization Collective Bargaining Agreement. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that based on the recommendation of the superintendent and negotiation team, and after due consideration and review, the West Irondequoit Board of Education adopts the collective bargaining agreement between the district and the West Irondequoit Maintenance Employees Organization for a term beginning July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2028, and directs that the superintendent execute the agreement and take such other steps as are necessary to implement it.
May I have a motion? Motion, Ms. Wall, second, Mr. Schopf. Dr. Johnson.
Good. I just want to again tip the hat to Michelle Kramer for leading our district negotiation team, and also to the leadership of WMIA for really coming to the table in a collaborative nature and seeking to find that mutual ground together. It seems to be a very productive process. So, Ms. Kramer, anything that you would add at this point?
Are there any questions?
Thanks again, Ms. Kramer, for leading these negotiations to the negotiation team. And really, this talks to the collaboration that we have with our unions. I mean, this contract went back to July, but this group came in good faith, still got our schools opened on time, had our facilities looking fantastic for day one, knowing that both them and our negotiating team were there in good faith and really working towards a compromise. So I really appreciate that that didn't affect really our students being able to come here, and it's Aaron, and we saw on countless news and social media posts that the district looked great for opening day and it was ready. So thanks for your leadership, your office, and Michelle's leading that negotiation team, and really the union leadership for coming forward and bringing that and their group together is important. So thank you.
I also just want to thank James too, because he stands behind that. A lot of number crunching, data providing, and computation. So,
Any other questions or comments? All right. Let's go ahead and vote. All of those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda is controversial issues and fundraising report. Dr. Johnson.
So thank you very much. So this is a culmination of almost a year's worth of work last year by a special committee that we commissioned. If you can remember, almost 2 years ago, we had an issue that runs in the community around some concerns with fundraising. And so we went back and we first looked at our policy and then looked at our regulation and what we needed to do to create the right structure to review such concerns that are brought to our attention. So I'll start out by, they're not in the room, but the people that, as part of this process, the superintendent has to put 2 people in charge of this committee, and that was Kim Crystal and Leah Daniels-Farron. And Leah has since left the district, but they did a tremendous job of really taking a holistic approach to this and really being inclusive and bringing in really some diverse perspective to the conversation. And so I just want to make sure that they're given their just credit for that. The other thing that I'll mention is I gave you a lot of materials, okay, for you to review in the administrative content. First was a fundraising memo. I was trying to wait to put that out for this year after this presentation. I chose to provide you this update and report at this meeting versus the first meeting, just because of the timing of the year. I know people were asking, so I did put a memo out with the recommendation and the outcome of this process. I also have in there, just for some of the newer members, the regulation that kind of outlines that, where we form a committee and what we do, and then the options that I'll review tonight. And then the committee met 3 times, and I thought it may be interesting for you to just be able to scan through some of their slides and see, again, what a comprehensive approach they took to this. So with that, I'm going to try to be succinct tonight and not review all of that. That's there for your review. Just talk a little bit about the issue. So a couple of years ago, when this came up, we talked here at the table. The board did some work to investigate the issue, and then collectively we chose to kind of put a moratorium on using Chick-fil-A until we figured this out, right? And that, like I said, stayed in place when we first addressed some of the policy and regulation needs that we had. And at that point, what we chose to do was, as part of that moratorium, just really for the district clubs and activities, lay it out so at that time they would not engage with any fundraising activities with this particular organization. But again, recognizing that for outside and adjacent agencies, we really don't have the authority to dictate what they do and don't do. But what we did communicate with them is that they chose to fundraise with this particular organization, that we would not promote that organization or advertise that in any way on our social media or our buildings or anything like that. We would support the advertisement of the activity in general, but just not identify that particular partner. So a little bit about the regulation and what we worked out in that. There's a clause in that regulation around controversial fundraising, and the statement in there that I think is critical to conceive is that objections to or criticism of a fundraising activity will be addressed according to the procedures outlined here. And it all starts with a complaint that comes in. It can really come in from a parent, our guardian. And one of the things that we've noted in reviewing this regulation is that we also have to amend that to include students, right? Because that was lacking in that. So that will be done. But the process starts with that complaint. Superintendent is responsible for appointing some chair people and organizing this committee to make sure that we take a really inclusive approach. The committee reviews the activity, takes some time to unpack the complaint, and then gathers some different insight and perspectives that you can see reflected in those PowerPoints that I gave you. Committee deliberates, and their job is to render a final recommendation to the superintendent. The superintendent reviews that recommendation and then either accepts or denies the recommendation or may change it. And then, once that recommendation is in place, there's communication that goes back to the complainant, and the complainant can then, if they're unhappy with the outcome, can appeal it to you as the Board of Education. But in this case, the complaint was more of like a general, holistic kind of a complaint that rose up through the community. And it was more of a concern around the issue. There was varied perspectives on that, like I said. So really, at this point, the communication goes out to you and then to the community. So within the regulation, there's some options that these committees can make, as far as their determination. The first is they can just reinstate whatever the activity is, right? And thereby kind of endorsing that. And in this case, this particular situation, they could reinstate the clubs to be able to work with Chick-fil-A with no restrictions. So that was one option. They could provide a modified recommendation where some specific aspect of the fundraising would be addressed to make it more aligned with our core values, with our DEI initiatives, with our policies and regulations and different things like that. Or they could remove it and recommend that we wouldn't partner with whatever the organization was. So the committee did a great job of kind of setting the stage, and as the true educators that they are, they started with an essential question. And you can see that there. Has Chick-fil-A repaired enough harm to not be banned as a choice for fundraising? And that was really the thing. It was all a number of years ago, and concerns around some of the activities and donations and at the corporate level. And since then, not only public opinion, but how it's harmed some individuals through those acts, and then what has been done by the corporation and some of the local entities to help them repair that harm. So again, they went through, and here's some of the basic steps. They first looked to as somebody mentioned earlier, they sought first to understand, right? To understand the controversy. They examined that timeline that I just described, looked at some of the press that came out both then and then in recent years. They unpacked the actual organization itself, right? They met with the local level, some of the business leaders here in the community. They also went to the kind of a corporate fact-finding of some of the things that the corporate levels put in place to address the issue. And then they've looked at some of the things at the local level. How are they engaging with schools and with the community here and having an impact, and how do people feel about that? Then they gathered perspective. They talked to some of our student groups, talked to individuals, and gathered information on how people felt about this. And then we also put them in contact with our attorneys, who was able to give them some insights around some First Amendment considerations. How, if we were going to, as a district, really put some tight restrictions around an organization like this, how we would have to prove or evidence the harm that it is happening to the community as a result of their work with us. And then also looking at the rights of the students. So that was a very critical part of this. So again, you have all the information. You can go through that. If you have any questions, happy to answer those either now or at any point, right? And the recommendation was, it came back to modify the actual partnership and put some different parameters in place for its use. And again, a lot of this came up through the voice of the students and what that might look like for them not to feel like this would continue to re-traumatize or cause further harm to not only the students but our stakeholders in the community. So what that will look like is that advertising will be limited. And again, outside organizations, we really don't have the authority, but inside and really for both, that advertising would continue a lot like it looks like now. We wouldn't be using their corporate insignia or really naming them by name in that. That wouldn't be present on any of our social media or our hallways. And the students talked about, hey, if I have to pass that every day in the hallways, that's really going to make me feel comfortable. And depending on their point of view on that, could harm them to different levels. They also suggested coordinating a meeting between Chick-fil-A and relevant student organizations. And we talked to the student organizations, they're not ready for that yet, but said that there might be a time when they are. So again, we'll kind of hold that off to the side and continue to check in. And if that becomes an opportunity, we will organize that, facilitate that. And then communicate. You know, our students felt strongly like they weren't sure that the greater student population knew enough about how that harm was caused and how it makes some members of our student population and really school community, staff as well, feel how it impacts them. So we've committed to really going through and creating opportunities to educate, right, and share that information, and partner between the district and our student groups and some of our faculty to share that information. So we'll be embarking on that this year and moving forward. So, in a nutshell, that's the process, kind of a high-level overview. The recommendation, like I said, I included the kind of a summary memo that went out to groups that were asking, and I open it up to the floor if there's any questions. And again, I just want to thank not only the leaders of the committees, but all the people that were involved in this committee, and then all the people that provided input along the way. I felt like it was a really comprehensive and inclusive process.
I have one question, just the advertising for a fundraiser. It wouldn't have the corporate logo or the name. How would it indicate? What would they indicate? What would they use to indicate that that's the fundraiser?
That is a fundraiser for that particular group. If we can't name it, like we say, I don't know what their address is, 1935 East Ridge Road,
Right.
and we just don't say Chick-fil-A. And I'm just using that as an example, where we not use the corporate logo, but, you know, all this student government, I'm just picking a group, sorry.
Yeah.
You know, is gonna have one there, and so they're gonna have a fundraiser. Do we just put the address down? I understand the corporate logo part.
Right.
I guess my question is like, okay, they're gonna have a, you know, you go up there, they're gonna give $1 for every meal they sell.
Right.
I don't, you know, how do I know where it is or a
So
student?
that's exactly it. It'll either be distributed in other ways or in ways that would identify using the logo or different parts of the identity for that organization. So that was the piece that came back from the students. And again, we worked, you know, their suggestion was anything that's publicly displayed. So in the hallways and social media, but there might be some other flyers available, or there may be links to a more personal site to the club or activity, right? And that's where some of that information would be housed. It wouldn't be forward-facing on our social media, our website, or in our hallways.
It was part of the conversation that I believe Chick-fil-A does on-site fundraisers too, where they'll bring a certain amount of prepared sandwiches and things like that. Was that discussed as far as doing that on site for games or dance or whatever?
Yeah. So, yes, again, like, in the past, they brought it on site, they set up signs and different things like that, with the, like some of the outside organizations for sure. I won't name them, but they would have to be sensitive to not display those on school grounds.
So they'd still be welcome to come here, but they couldn't put up their
Right.
sign, signage.
Right. Yep, they distribute, I mean, obviously, like their packaging and different things would have that, but they wouldn't be able to advertise. Again, forward facing publicly, social media, signs, hallways, things like that.
And I get that the complaint was made against Chick-fil-A, just for my own knowledge. Are there other companies like that do fundraising?
There are.
I'm just, off the top of my head, I'm like drawing a blank on the ones I've ever seen. It's probably because
Could be
we're talking about.
Panera.
Okay, yeah, all right,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
Okay. Oh, yeah,
Chipotle is
Chipotle,
another
one.
big one. So at the time, the board did have the conversation on, like, how do we police all of the different partners that we may work with, right? And it's really not about policing, it's around if there's a complaint that arises. Then it would fall to this process to investigate.
And then one last question that just came up now, we're talking about the other ones. Was the legal counsel consulted about any liability that we have for censoring one and not censoring another? Or would that be across the board? So we allow Panera to come in and put up their signage, it's in the hallways, but Chick-fil-A is not. Is there any action Chick-fil-A can take?
And it goes back to that, how we would evidence the harm. And so through this, we've evidenced the harm because there was a complaint, right? And so we processed that, we've gotten the different perspectives from our students. And then this doesn't ban them from participating. So again, there's a financial component in there, and I think that's kind of what you're alluding to. But it does put some measures in place to minimize the harm to our students. And their biggest complaint, their biggest concern, our students and staff for this particular issue, was that it would just be public and in their face as something that they wouldn't be able to really remove themselves from. So that's really the key with working with our organizations, both internal and external, moving forward, is that they understand that they can still, on their personal webpage, flyers that they may distribute outside of the schools, different things like that, they can use it. They just can't post it publicly on our facilities or on our social media. And you know what? I think there's going to be a transitional period because even when we put this moratorium in place, there was some outside organizations that would come in and there'd be signs and different things up, and we just said that we wouldn't be advertising, for that on our social media. So this will be a little bit different from that perspective.
So I actually do have something. I was recently in contact with Chick-fil-A through the organization I'm co-vice president on. And what I was told was sport organizations are still allowed to do fundraisers through Chick-fil-A, but we are not as a school club. And then additionally, as this was all being spoken about, my one main concern is, well, if we're not advertising what company it is and we're just advertising the address or something, wouldn't it kind of be better to be upfront about who we're working with? That way students and their parents can decide, or so the students know, rather than kind of be, just an address there, or, because I understand that the image causes harm, but also by not placing it and, sending people to an address where they may not want to support, I feel like it's kind of being deceitful.
So that's where really, for whatever the club and activity is, so the first thing I'll address, and it's a great question, Mark, that was last year. So last year, our student clubs and activities could not work with Chick-fil-A. That was part of our moratorium. Based on this, they can moving forward. And the difference is, and again, this is where anything that's public facing, if you're going to put up a flyer in the hallways or in the cafeteria, it can't have that identifying information like the insignia, some of those things, because that's what was triggering for our students and our staff that we interviewed. But again, then it becomes a responsibility of whatever the activity is or the organization to distribute and call awareness to really, right, identify that through their own more personal means. And so, again, that could be their own personal webpage, right, that the clubs and activities may operate. It could be through flyers that are distributed within the community. You know, sometimes there's some door-to-door things and different things like that, right? But it wouldn't be at our facilities or buildings.
All right, thank you for bringing that up.
Yep. Yep, because we did talk about that, right? We want to make sure that people do know. And that was a big part of the conversation. Like, people have a choice. If you don't want to participate in it, then you don't have to. So, and that really wasn't where we landed. It was more the harm that the broadly displayed images cause, the trigger that they cause for some of our students and staff. And be mindful of that.
Just one question and then one kind of piece of feedback. So in the committee that reviewed this, did it include supporters of Chick-fil-A?
Yes.
It did, okay.
Yep.
And I guess, kind of in the same vein, but I just see, I respect the feelings of those that made the complaint and definitely don't want people to be triggered by anything. It seems that it is almost harmful to groups that do want to participate in fundraising with Chick-fil-A because now you have to work a little bit harder to kind of get funds. Additionally, I understand the triggering of the image, but also like that's kind of what draws it, right? Like I don't always eat Bill Gray's, but when I see it on the website, I'm like, oh great, Bill Gray's, that's easy dinner. Like it's just a trigger point for me as a as a visual person that it, I don't know, I guess the bulk of my concern is it just seems like it would be harmful to groups that do want to use that because they now have to work harder, and fundraising is already hard enough. Now they have to put in additional effort in order to get funds, and it's almost like kind of like pushing them to not use Chick-fil-A if you don't want to have to work harder.
Yeah. Well, and that's the crux of the issue. It is not an easy issue. And that's why we went through this. And again, it goes back to our mission statement, all means all, right? And the commitment there. And I felt like when this recommendation came forward from the committee, that was really their spirit. To meet not only and support some of the efforts for our students that are seeking to support their programs, right, and their opportunities, but also our students that feel harmed and triggered by this. And so, obviously, there's flaws, because I think what I'm hearing from you is it's kind of a de-incentive. It de-incentivizes the use of Chick-fil-A, right? And that may be so, but it's out of the respect for the sectors of our student staff population who have that opposing association, you know, with the organization. The other thing, the piece of that really came to light that I appreciated was really that educational piece, and we committed to reassessing this down the road. Okay, so the period of time wasn't defined, but reassessing this and thereby measuring the progress of the repair, right, and then the comfort, and then the other piece of that kind of educational piece, especially the student body, was for them to build an appreciation, right, for how some of your peers feel, but also to look at the financial aspect, because I didn't realize this, when you look at the contributions from the different organizations back to the clubs and activities, it's interesting who pays the highest dividends back and who doesn't. So I think that when we look at incentives, when they look at the economics of it, there may be more beneficial opportunities in many ways.
I will say, as of last time I was in contact with Chick-fil-A, which was like a week ago, so when we were trying to set that fundraiser up, it was a 10% commission on all mobile orders, and since learning about, since hearing that we weren't allowed to, now knowing that that's not the stance of the board, but we switched over to Chipotle, which allows a 25% commission on all sales over the hours that you choose compared to 10%. So there are more equitable options compared to Chipotle.
That's awesome. From the educational piece though, I'm glad that it is being reassessed. The incentive piece aside, that's 25 is way better. But from the educational piece, I will say, globally, I understand the challenges with Chick-fil-A. More locally, the one that we have here in town is actually very beneficial to the community. They are often doing things inside of their establishment and outside to support Irondequoit, not just the West Irondequoit district, but also the East Irondequoit district as well. So in that assessment, taking the global side of it aside as well, like hopefully that they're considering the local side of it as well. So.
And that's the hope, is that we can continue to move that partnership forward in a positive way. This all started when they approached me, when they opened, when I think it was 50 free gift cards for a year of Chick-fil-A. And I started asking around, and that's where there was from some components of our school community, there was a really sharp reaction to that. And that really was where I brought it back and shared that with the board, and that led to this discussion and this process. But they're really community oriented, and they are seeking to make connections to support their local schools.
I'd just like to add that I really appreciate the depth and thoughtfulness of this process. I appreciate that we have it in place for as this issue evolves and as other issues might come up in the future. And I also really appreciate that we are focused on the equity and the inclusion piece, and that reducing and eliminating harm to our students has really been the centerpiece of what this policy ends up being, and where we can balance that with other interests, we've done that. But I think that it's really important that we not harm students with fundraising. And so I just really appreciate all that went into this, all of the different voices that came into it, and the way that the student voices reflected in what we ended up with.
Pass that along. Thank you.
Yeah, this has been a long conversation. Oh, I'm sorry. This has been a long conversation, amongst the board, and I appreciate the level of detail that went into this. And I also appreciate how it aligns with some of the other policies that we have in place. Right? It's a very similar process to a book challenge in our libraries or curriculum challenges. So I think it, again, kind of level sets things a little bit more and provides consistency across multiple aspects of our policies. So it was a very time-consuming process, and I appreciate all the time and energy that went into it.
One other thing before I turn it over to John, one of the things that we talked about with the advertising was being a QR code. So again, if they're going to display it, they don't have to put all the information up there, but there will be a link to go to that are more extensive, definition of the fundraiser.
So, appreciate all the work that the committee did. This has been a 2-year journey, I'll say. And like you said, the depth of that went into making this. My question comes from so it's about regulation. I know the policy and I know the regulation is kind of in your court, but the question on the regulation is, and you kind of touched on it, is there's obviously reinstate, modify, or remove. If at any point, and reinstate, that's pretty simple. The question is on the modify or remove. This committee made a recommendation. You said that it would be looked at again. What's that time frame like? Do we need to say, and should the regulation say, because they need time, right? So should we say this took 2 years? Should we say in the regulation, in about 2 to 3 years, we would relook at it again, to relook at that? Because otherwise, they're just on, I've got my business hat on right now, so it's not just Chick-fil-A, anybody that gets on it. If you're there and you really want to do something to support the district, you say, okay, maybe we did some stuff and you really work on that repair and stuff. And so knowing that in 2 to 3 years, there's going to be another review on this. Do you understand what I'm saying? And they're just not left out there in this modified state. That's my question.
Well, again, I think we can put that in place, right? And that's certainly a parameter that I could
think about it. I'm just
request or
wondering about.
recommend. But when it comes back to me as a superintendent and I consult with you, we can certainly put that in place and say, hey, we're going to review this in 2 years. And
And I didn't know if
it's easy enough.
and I know maybe conversation with the board, and then incorporate that into your regulation area and say, with discussion of the board, we thought it would be fair for any business that was in this or went through this, that we would relook at it in 2 to 3 years.
Well, you know, honestly, from a superintendent's perspective, I think it's important to discuss that, but I'd like to leave that open for a recommendation from the committee. Because it may be different, John, depending on like the energy and attention around that. Like if this was, this isn't as electrified as it was in the past, so we may want to review that more often, you know, moving towards that. Or 2 to 3 years might fit, right? But certainly, if we remember back to some of the conversations we had with opposing views 2 years ago, depending on how this came out, I would have suggested that we reviewed it annually to check in.
I'm okay with that.
Right, yeah.
I think it's important that.
I think a review process for sure would
And
be.
I don't know what that, I don't expect to have that tonight.
Right.
That, and maybe that is a charge to the committee is, okay, we did a model, what would a review process look like? What would be a timeline that the committee would think?
Right.
And bring that recommendation back, and you can help formulate that into regulation. Because really, the regulation is what I call in your court, right? You took the policy that the board adopted that said we want a fundraising policy, and then you help, and it really helps our staff to know those steps, right? And then maybe we have the committee, okay, we have this, we found it, but not a gap. Something that would be nice to know is what is a look back period look like?
Right, yeah, we can add that as further.
You know, can the business ask for that, or
Requirements.
is it just the committee? You know, I mean, those are things that I would ask the committee there.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, discussion?
There's no board action on this, right?
No. All right, moving on, next under new business is field trip request to Germany. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the field trip request for German language students to travel to Germany from August 14th through August 28th, 2025 be approved as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Boynwell, second. Ms. Copeland? Dr. Johnson? Yeah, so this is a pretty cool trip. You've had a chance to take a look at this, I'm sure. So this is over the summer in August. Kind of go through it. It's associated with one of our international clubs. One of our staff members presented this. I don't think they've been in Germany recently, but this particular person has organized a number of international trips. You can take a look at the number of students that they are anticipating. They've got everything in place as far as the requirements that the board has set. You know, trip insurance, considerations for the appropriate ratio of like chaperones. What they would still be in process is once this is approved, the fundraising opportunities and different things for students that they will organize. But you can see the itinerary, you can see the cost, and this will get them started to be able to lock in and then start to plan some of those fundraising opportunities and to solicit even from the board.
Pretty sure I volunteered.
I think we need to, somebody needs to go.
I agree. I mean, we all
I speak for the journal.
I mean, right.
I'll leave my spot.
This does look like a really interesting trip.
What a wonderful opportunity for our students.
And I'll tell you, since being here, we have so many staff members that step up and organize trips like this. And, you know, you look at it, it's over summer vacation. So that person is doing this during their vacation,
Yeah.
right, over the summer to organize this and to supervise and chaperone. And so it's really comes from the heart, passion.
These are really incredible opportunities for our students. My daughter was fortunate to go on one of these trips to France, and it was actually when there was the fire at Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, it really was, you know, something that, no pun intended, will be burned in her mind in terms of, you know, something of historical significance that
Yeah.
she was in the area for. And you know, these really are not only educational opportunities, but creates an opportunity for memories that, you know, they'll share with their kids and maybe even encourage to create those opportunities for their children.
I do have one question. The total number of students, is that the total number of students that have just expressed interest in going on the trip, or how is that number determined?
So they've done like kind of a straw, but I think that's based on past trips, like in generally what they would expect.
They really can take as many as they want. Our policy talks and the regulation talks about student to chaperone ratio. So they could take 50 as long as they have enough chaperones, right? So I think that 10 to 15 is probably the minimum to make the trip work with the travel
That I
agency.
don't know, yeah.
Now, I'm saying, usually it seems like 10 to 15 is like you gotta have that many.
To support one chaperone.
Yeah.
Because they do.
I think I'm thinking, so thank you for that context. I was thinking more of like the equity part of it, like if you have a student, say whose family is fortunate and they are able to go to every trip that's offered, as opposed to a student who is not, like, how do you make sure that those that may be a little bit less fortunate, obviously they can do fundraising, et cetera, but have those opportunities to participate in these, because these are incredible experiences. So
you're wondering if that 15 is a cap?
Yeah.
I do not believe that is as a cap, but I will confirm that.
And just some history for the board is back about 7 years ago, our German, when we had German in the last cycle, actually, and I don't know if it's this school that they're tied up with, but the school that they were tied up with actually came here for 2 weeks. And they came to a board meeting. So Mark Burns was a lot big into that group when they came. And they actually came and saw a board meeting for a little bit. And they went to school with our students for like 2 days. And it was, so I think this is reciprocal, but we've actually seen them, you know, where they call partner school or whatever, when they talk about it here. We've actually had schools come here to us also at different times. So that's kind of a
It's part of this plan too.
Any other questions? All right, let's go ahead and vote now. All of those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is field trip request cross-country. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the field trip request for varsity cross-country team members to travel to Bronx, New York and Paramus, New Jersey from October 11th to October 13th, 2024 be approved as presented.
May I have a motion? Mr. Bay, in a second. Mr. Moore, Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, so this is a trip that they take pretty much every year, but it's one that they're invited to, right, James? You know, cross country. Right, yeah. But they can't pre-plan for this because they have to secure the invitation. So that's why it always comes in a little late from what our normal expectations are for a request. But you'll go through this again. Since I've been here, it's been every year. And what it really seeks to do is give them some of that higher level experience in competing. Plus, I think the students really enjoy that. And it kind of sets them up to not only really push their skills, but kind of test some of where they're at moving into the tail end of the season as well. At least that's my understanding, talking with the coaches in the past. So obviously the boosters are involved in some of the supports. And if you have any questions, happy to do my best to address those.
I think it's a good team building too.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Another great point.
And we've had some success at this event with some of our individual runners. What was the gentleman that, Ryan? He got invited to the Nike invitation because of his placement at this invitational. He got invited, remember, to that, in Oregon, to the Nike National Invitation.
Right.
And then he got a scholarship to do for running. So, yeah, that was a big deal that he got that, I think in the top 5. And so I remember that, because then that was a whole other one that had come back, and we kind of had to turn around quick because they had to accept that. So, yeah, it's good to kind of outside the Section 5 to benchmark themselves. I'll say.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. To make more efficient use of actually get the recommended resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the West Irondequoit Central School District approves the consent agenda, which includes I-2 through I-5.
For the consent agenda, to make more efficient use of meeting time, the Board of Education authorizes the use of the consent agenda as part of the meeting agenda. This allows for one motion to approve multiple items, and items are identified as such on the agenda. The President of the Board will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda, and will ask if the board members wish to have a discussion or clarification on any specific item within the consent agenda. Following the discussion, the board will then vote on the consent agenda motion. Additionally, a board member may request to have an item removed from the consent agenda in order to vote on the motion separately. So that being said, any questions, comments, or clarifications needed on any of the items in the consent agenda, which include recommendations of the Committee on Special Education, surplus furniture Rogers, surplus vehicles Department of Environmental Services, and donation West Irondequoit Foundation. Is there a consent agenda item that anyone on the board would like to remove the consent from the consent agenda and vote on separately? Okay, then let's go ahead and vote. All of those in.
We need a motion.
Oh, can I get a motion? Sorry. Ms. Copeland is second. Mr. Shopful. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is board liaison reports for the Monroe County School Boards Association. And the first report would be Legislative Committee, which involves Ms. Copeland, Ms. Wall, and myself. I'll kick it off. I had our first Legislative Committee meeting 2 weeks ago. We were asked to bring district advocacy items, and Mr. Brennan, thank you for your tireless work every year in putting together what I would consider our district's position papers. Talked a little bit about some of the pressing topics that they're going to be looking at this year, and right now the primary focus is on putting together a position papers subcommittee that will work on updating a couple key position papers and seeing if there's any opportunities to add some to the current MC, BSA, and SBA. Next item on the agenda, I'm sorry, Ms. Copeland and Ms. Wall, anything to add to that?
It was just a great conversation. It's really such an active organization, doing a lot of great work and topics that have been really important at this board table. So it's really great to be involved with them.
And actually, just something that I remembered, there's going to be some changes in terms of the way Monroe County School Boards approaches advocacy. So typically, one of the biggest advocacy activities that the organization utilizes is the legislative breakfast, which brings in members from all of our member districts to meet with local, state, and national legislators. There's going to be a pre-meeting before that, because in many cases, some of these legislators send members of their team instead of appearing themselves. So these pre-meetings are going to allow us to meet with their staff, share some of the positions that we wish to discuss, so that when those staff members do come to the legislative breakfast, they're a little bit more prepared to discuss the topics that have been presented to them in advance. All right, the next item on the agenda is District Operations Committee, which is myself and Mr. Vey. This was a really interesting meeting earlier this week on Wednesday, actually yesterday, earlier this week. And it was Greece School District presenting their current digital device policy. Greece currently has a policy that was implemented at the start of the 22-23 school year that prohibits the use of personal electronic devices in any of their K-5 schools. And then all of their 6 through 12 locations are officially personal electronic device free zones. So students are issued what they call a yonder pouch. So this is a large pouch that has a very powerful magnetic closure. They're issued to students in the same way that their one-to-one technology is. So it's given to a student at the start of the year. The student will maintain that pouch throughout their career as a student in those schools. The first one is free. If anything is lost, they have to replace it themselves. When students come into the building, much like we have, they have a policy or a program where all the students are being greeted by either teachers or members of the administration. And part of that greeting process has trained faculty and administration on what to look for, like squares in pockets and earbuds in ears and hyper focusing on watches and things like that. The students are required to power down or put their phones on silent, and any smartwatches and phones have to go into the pouch, and then they touch a district provided magnet that seals that pouch. And that pouch is to remain sealed whenever the student is within the building during the academic day. They do have exception processes in place, as we know that some smart technology can have use in academic accommodations or medical accommodations, most commonly like diabetes, or like myself, using them to control hearing aids. Those students are also issued pouches, but those pouches are Velcro, so that the phones, they can access those phones when needed. They shared some interesting data in terms of what they've seen in improvement. Some of the challenges they talked through is how they separate that from some of their other initiatives that they have to drive academic improvement and social, emotional, and mental health improvements. But through feedback, they said that faculty and staff love it, students hate it, and parents are mixed. They're continuing to gather data and continuing to review feedback and do what they can to better tie it back into data. But it was a very timely topic because we also know that New York State is having these conversations at a gubernatorial level and may be making some decisions that school districts will need to enact on over the course of the coming year. And then the last item on Monroe County School Boards Association is information exchange. That's Ms. Bornabal and myself. Meeting was last Wednesday, and it was actually focused more on new members. Ms. Wall attended that as well. So I talked a little bit about governance and some of the topics that we traditionally cover in our annual board retreat, the role of the school board member, and how to effectively interact with the public in public situations. Anything that you'd like to add on that?
No, I mean, I think I love the social hour. It was a great opportunity to connect with other district leaders, other district board leaders, and superintendents were there as well. So it was just a great opportunity to connect and have conversation and build relationships. So
one of the takeaways that I took away from it was Amy Thomas referenced 2 books that that really stood out to me. The roundtable was based on one of the chapters in the books. It was called the School Board Members Guidebook. So that was really great, and Matt and I had talked about perhaps like getting it for the board and like we all sort of read it together. And then there was another one that was sort of funny. It was like how to not be a bad board member, I think, or something like that. And what it was is case studies that were case studies of situations that had occurred. And then at the back of the chapter, it was the superintendent's point of view of like how everything unfolded, what could have been done differently, what worked, what didn't. And so those were 2 books that we thought might be a nice opportunity for us as a board, especially having such a new, like we're just very heavily new here. So we thought that that might be great. What was the other thing? There was one more thing that we took away from that. It was the book.
There's
Oh, I know what it was, and Jenna already did it for us. It was like the chain of command, because we were talking about that. So thank you. You're sweet. But we had, that was another thing that came up. Again, this was geared towards newer board members, and we started to talk about right, so if somebody approaches you in Wegmans, like for a brand new board member, what does that chain of command look like? And so we had very quickly talked about that with, and we came into that today, so that was great. Thank you.
now it looks like pulling this off my purse.
I know. Yes. Yeah. So it was a really great, fun meeting. Winter County School Board Association, they're just a great resource, and glad to be a part of it.
All right. Next, we have board liaison reports for our school community groups. And the first one on the agenda is Homer Nature Center. And that is Ms. Borneville and Mr. Shaw.
We have our first meeting scheduled for October 24th.
And then next we have PTSA, and that's Ms. Borneville and Ms. Wall.
So we actually had our first Central PTSA meeting last week. It was a very fruitful meeting. They elected a new board president. So Jim Payne, who is a Southland parent and also a PLTI alum, is now the president of the Central PTSA, which is awesome. They talked a lot about different events that are going on around the district. The building reps presented information on the different events that are going on. They talked about budgeting, how they're reviewing the different budgets, and they're going to have those available at their next central meeting, which I believe is this first or second week in October. They also have an upcoming building rep training that they're going to be delivering to make sure that all the building reps are aligned on key points of their roles as representatives of the schools. We talked about Title I, so as a parent, it was very exciting. The upcoming curriculum night that we have childcare becoming available at some of the schools, which is awesome. So thank you, Christy. She actually attended the central meeting in May to get more information on that. Michelle was there too, I believe, so that was really cool. I don't know, did I forget anything?
There was so much. There was. I think they talked about voting yes on their bylaws.
Yes.
I don't know, I just think that the overall consensus was that everybody is really off to a great start this year. Looking for more, I think, participation, and talking about fundraising efforts, but yeah, it was a really good meeting.
Thank you for that update. Next, we have Western Irondequoit Foundation, which includes the Western Irondequoit Alumni Association, and that's Ms. Bohr and Mr. Bev.
So I can give an update. We met on the 9th of September. And they went through, I don't know if you guys know, they're having a cornhole tournament. Make sure Jeff knows I plugged that form even in the meeting. They're still looking for some teams to sign up. And it is their major fundraising event. So there's that. They talked about the grants that they gave and what that might look like going forward. How do we encourage more staff to fill out the grants? There was like a talk of maybe doing a TLC thing where teachers could come in, like, I don't want to call it grant writing, but like what it is and maybe help them structure that, it's a real simple one-page thing, but just to make sure that staff are aware of what's out there. Maybe funding one larger grant, like they have some initiatives, and what else there?
Yeah, they received a pretty sizable donation around alumni.
Yeah,
120K, right?
Yeah, that was alumni not to be named, they asked, but they an honorarium in that alumni's name. It was about, I think it was 29. So that was a surprise to them.
Right.
And
5K annually for the other side.
Yeah.
I think it could be,
So
some pretty cool stuff.
So they talked about that, and then they also talked about what they're trying, now that the Alumni Association and the Foundation Association are much more aligned. They're, this idea of that, they're calling it the All Irondequoit Alumni. They're looking for that the Saturday of Thanksgiving week there, so there'll be more. We don't want to mix it with the cornhole tournament, so once the cornhole's over, we'll kind of talk about that some more. But a lot of dedicated people there that do some really good work behind the scenes. As the board representative, I did just tell them that as a board, we really appreciate all their hard work, their ability to see different programs that we have then been able to evaluate and then put into the budget. So ideas that staff have had. At some point, we should work on a list of like what they've seeded and then what we've kind of like rolled into programs. I know it's kind of expensive, but I can help work on it. But you know what I mean? It would be just interesting to say, a teacher came up with this initiative or this idea, and they've done bigger ones. James, over the time, and then we gave the board time to work that into the budget, right? Like, so someone had an idea or whatever. So maybe I'll talk to John about that, but we should work on a list like that. So good work they're doing for the behind the scenes for the students of our district and our staff. So
Thank you for that update. Next, we have the Teacher Learning Center with Ms. Bohr and Ms. Wall.
Our first meeting is October 3rd. We haven't met yet.
Oh, I actually did get a report from Cecilia, so.
Oh, okay. So, let me read this. As the director, she's working on getting TLC courses set up for the year with a variety of presenters, both in and out of the district, based on the grant that the policy board approved in May. The grant also has funds to send people to conferences. So in the first newsletter, there's going to be information going out about some local, or just some national conferences that staff can sign up to attend. And so for board.
All right, and then finally, we have Health and Safety, and that's Ms. Copeland and Mr. Shaw.
We have not met yet.
Okay.
I think the first meeting next week.
I do not know about
I
that.
have not
Okay.
gotten that. Is that a set?
I'm just going by looking at my calendar.
But is it a set regular meeting? It's like,
Yeah, it's a quarterly meeting. Yeah. I can make sure you guys get it.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to board liaison reports, schools. Start with Irondequoit High School.
Yes, so IHS was honored to participate in the Town Hall 9/11 celebration as the students
student representatives pointed out, they had several IHS Corral members who performed, which was excellent. And then we are in homecoming week. So again, IHS has been full of spirit. A lot of the students and faculty have enjoyed even starting the week in their pajamas, which was always great. They did have Super Quiz, which was full of energy, and IHS Pride. They had a holiday decorating contest and pep rally this week. And then, of course, the big homecoming game tomorrow, which is exciting. So.
Okay. Next item, the next update is Dake Junior High. That is myself. I have not connected with Ms. Dunn yet. It basically intentionally. These first couple of weeks of school here, new position for her. So I will be reaching out to her next week, just from an introduction standpoint, and then to set up some times for meetings as well. Then next we have Rogers. Yes, Lord.
Yes, Mr. DiMartino that made some highlights. The students and staff are loving the new playground, the Gaga ball pits, and the brand new sod grass fields. These updates have made recess more engaging for everyone. Their school-based planning team has developed an incredible action plan to target areas of growth this year. And some highlights include expanding on the implementation of the Caring Schools community curriculum and narrowing in on growth in reading and in math. And some new staff members at Rogers are making a difference. They are supported with amazing mentors that are setting them up for success. 6th grade teacher, Miss Beck, is running community circles and morning meetings, combined with Miss Sador's self-contained special education classrooms. Students are learning to sign good morning, as well as other important signs to foster an inclusive environment for a deaf student.
I just want to add in regards to the playground. So we had a PTSA event over the weekend, a playground day. So many kids wanted to leave the cell phone playground to go to Rogers. And very they love this playground, and we had cheer practice at the Iroquois one, and they are obsessed with the Iroquois playground.
So I'm gonna second that. My daughter is at Rogers and cannot, like, the highlight is the Gaga pit. Like, every day, she cannot get enough of that Gaga pit.
My 2-year-old son loves the Gaga pit.
Yeah. And then I'm like, what's a Gaga pit?
I was just going to say, I'm going to have to get down there. I've heard Gaga pit now, and facilities meetings and school updates. And
Put a Band-Aid on my son last night. Gaga injury.
Gaga
Yeah.
My sister, she's a
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's intense.
all right, next we have Iroquois. Ms. Cole.
So I also received some updates from Mr. Zwallen. A very successful opening this year. Students and families were warmly welcomed, which reflected a lot of work by our faculty to create community throughout the buildings. Also at Iroquois, as noted, students are very excited about the new playground. There was a really lovely ribbon cutting to, really launch that, and I know how excited the kids are, and it really is wonderful to see both of our playgrounds and the kids being able to use that. I know we've all been talking about it for a long time, and it is so cool. The kids are there all the time. The weekends, they're just, it's a really wonderful space for them. And then also at Iroquois, they are excited to be starting RTI much earlier than they've started them this week, which is much earlier than they've been able to do in the past, and so that individualized instruction will help students make even more gains this year. So. That's what's going on at Iroquois.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. Now Briarwood Colebrook, Mr. Shop.
Yeah, Ms. Farrell and I haven't had a chance to meet yet, although we discussed before the meeting tonight, just about doing that. The Briarwood pre-K classroom is up and running. Students are getting settled into school routines, and being the therapy dog has been a big hit, welcoming students into the school. For Colebrook, the PTSA bike rodeos this Friday. It'll be attended by families, and it's a chance for students and families to learn about bike safety from Irondequoit Police Officer Lawton. And both schools will be doing curriculum night next week.
Thank you for that. Now Brookview and Seneca with Ms. Warren.
So Mrs. Spitz and I connected. She wanted to first and foremost thank and recognize all of the staff members who made the start of the school year so seamless. Through their preparation over the summer, students and families were able to hit the ground running. It was a wonderful welcoming, especially for the newest kindergarten students coming in, as well as the returning students, and then those who are new to Brookview and Seneca. She just said that having everybody back in the building is just, like, the energy is so contagious, and she is just loving it, and so they're off to a really great start. And then she also noted that the Board of Education student liaisons had met with 9 of the Brookview students as they shared their report, and that the students really enjoyed talking about all of the amazing parts of their day. And so Ms. Spitz and I are going to connect, and there are some activities and meetings going on at the schools that we're going to connect calendars on, and I will be attending.
Thank you, Ms. Bonneville. And finally, Westwood South Lawn, Mr. Bell.
Yeah, so I visited the school 3 times on the first 4 days of school now.
Wow.
I told Jake, I told Eric, yeah, I showed up the first day of school, I showed up to Jake, and he was surprised I was there. No, school is off to a good start at Westwood and South Lawn. Jake settling in some of the highlights that he wanted to make sure I highlighted is he did an event called Hot Dogs with the Principal, and it was very successful. It was for staff, students, and families, and it was so successful that it's been asked by the students, staff, and parents to make sure it's an annual event now. He did, like, at each school, like, over 300 hot dogs. So he was cooking a lot of hot dogs. And I got that from my daughter, who went to the one at Westwood, but South Lawn was just as busy. So
I had 3 myself.
So it was a big event, and it sounds like a good time. I couldn't attend because I had a prior Thursday, twice a month Thursday night engagement, so that was a little disappointing. Also, the playground updates, like everybody else says, is they're just really excited for the kids to get on the playgrounds this weather's been excellent for them to get some extended time out there. They appreciate that. One thing they did do is they're implementing some changes at dismissal procedure to increase student safety. That it has to do with like a neon colored place card to pick up students, and it makes it, after the first couple of days, it's increased efficiency, but more importantly, it helps us to correctly identify and ensure students are going home with the right adult. So again, more of that, he's going to show me that when I go sometime. Let me see what else did he say. New procedures are falling into that. He's really happy to be on board. The staff has been welcoming, and everybody's been really helpful. And then we just are going to set up some dates. I asked him to just send me what works for him, and so in the future I'll have him report when I meet with him. So, yeah. Indeed, that listed one, the secretary actually had a hot dog costume on. So she was, I guess I saw some pictures on social media.
He had a hot dog hat.
It was, what?
He had a hot dog hat.
Yeah, so it looks like it was a successful event. So, that's all I have today.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. I'm beginning to think that any future capital project that we have may fall grossly short in excitement if we don't have some level of a playground updated built into it. So as you're talking about that the high school may need, or the bridge, maybe the high school needs.
It's sliding the bridge. Or a fireball.
All right, next on the agenda we have future meetings. Ms. Lustig, are we having any future meetings?
Yes, we have audit committee followed by a study session Thursday, October 3rd. Audit committee will be at 6 and the meeting will be at 7. And then we have the focus area presentation followed by a regular meeting on Thursday the 17th. Focus area presentation will be at 5 p.m. at Listwood, and the business meeting will be at 7 at district office.
And finally, executive session. Ms. Lustig, do we have any reason to go into executive session?
No, we do not.
All right, I think I kind of secretly hoped that this would be one of those marathon meetings so that Ms. Kramer would be able to sit back 2 Thursdays from now and go, wow, I just got like 6 hours back. but it wasn't. Just
Well, we
once
haven't
again.
adjourned yet, so-
Again, once again, thank you for everything. You'll be sorely missed at these meetings, but I'm sure you won't sorely miss these meetings.
I'll miss you guys.
Just to let you know, Ms. Kramer, we're here every other Thursday.
All right, that brings us to adjournment. We have a motion to adjourn. Mr. Shotwell, a second. Ms. Moore, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Yeah.